Hey everybody, sorry for the long wait. I'm finally going to cover my first place nationals team from the 2014 U.S. National Championships in Indianapolis past July 4th weekend. This is the team that I used to get first. Now, this video is in conjunction with an article that's being published on Nugget Bridge. The Nugget Bridge article, there will be a link in the description, don't worry. It covers it covers all my battles and my thoughts and what I remember from the whole weekend. So that's more of like a personal story, war story, if you know, as you would have it. And this is more focused on the team and how I chose it. The video is going to be split up into two different parts, part one and part two. Hopefully, only two parts, because it takes a while to actually make these. As dumb as they look, these PowerPoints take a little bit of time. So I figured split it up into two so I don't bore you guys. But let's get into it. This is the team that I once again won U.S. Nationals with. So I'm going to cover basically everything you could want to know about it. First up, let's take a look at the team. Politoed, Ludicolo, Kangaskhan, Talonflame, Hydreigon, and Aegislash. All of the items are beneath the corresponding Pokemon. If you don't know what these are, that's a Choice Scarf for Politoed, Assault Vest Ludicolo, obviously Mega Kangaskhan, Banded Talonflame, Specs Hydreigon, and leftovers on Aegislash. Now, I am running three choice items, and I'm running Fake Out Kangaskhan, and Assault Vest means I can't run a protective move on Ludicolo, so I'm not running Protect the move, Protect or Detect on anything. Aegislash does use King's Shield, but you know that doesn't even block Taunt and stuff like that or Will-O-Wisp. So largely the team was very, very offensive, what you would call a hyper-offensive team. So there's not a lot of defensive synergy as much as pieces that are willing to come out and do damage and then go down for something else. So keep that in mind as I go through it. There's not a lot of Protect here. Now, I think Protect is a fantastic move, and I would never recommend running three choice items unless that's exactly what your team needs. And I have a reason I ran all of these, and I'll go through it and you'll see why. But do note, there's not a lot of Protect on this team. In fact, there's no Protect on this team. Alright, here we go. On the left, you can see the Pokemon I'm talking about circled. The black box gives you the set of the Pokemon. The red describes what the EVs are there to survive or to KO. And the blue box is there to tell you kind of the gist of what the Pokemon was used for on the team. I'm going to start off. These are actually in the order I put them on the team. I formulated the team myself without outside influence minus the Hydreigon. I got help with the Hydreigon, but besides that, it was basically just me and my buddy Stump talking through, team mechanics for a couple months, 2 months before I finally got to this build of the team. Now, UK Nationals winner, Korean Nationals winner, even Ray was using a Rain team. I didn't know Rain was like going meta. I had no idea. I just thought it'd be a strong play. And when I picked it up, I was like, oh, cool, maybe I'll be like the only person doing this or like one of the few. But Rain seemed to be very strong. We had 3 Rain finishes in top 8 of US Nationals. So it was a pretty good pick for the tournament. Politoed, as I mentioned earlier, it has Choice Scarf, and I'm going to explain where these choices come from after I go through all 6 of these Pokemon. So that the individual Pokemon themselves will come after I just kind of do a light cover of all of them. Modest, 12 HP EVs, 12 defense, 236 special attack because I found 236 instead of 252. Keeps most of the same KOs, in fact almost all of them, but allows you to save some EVs to put elsewhere, especially in the main strong stab moves for these Pokemon. 4 special defense, 244 speed. Scald, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, those are all for coverage. Hydro Pump gets some KOs that Scald doesn't. Scald can go for burns. I also ran Rain Dance, and that's covered in my last point of what it was used for. Politoed was here as a weather changer, and a lot of times you'll get, you'll want to lead Rain against Mega Charizard, because it's a Charizard, you lead it, but you're afraid of them Megaing and getting rid of your Rain, so I could stand out there and Rain Dance on that turn. Their Drought goes first as they Mega Evolve, or from Mega Tyranitar, their Sandstorm goes back up first, and then I can Rain Dance after it, because the Mega Evolution happens before all the attacks happen. So Rain Dance was actually very important to me during Nationals, even though it's a Choice Scarf set. The EVs on the right, very important. Talonflame gave my team a lot of problems, so I made sure that my Politoed could survive all forms of Talonflame Brave Bird except for the Adamant Choice Banded version. That has a chance to one-shot, but all the rest I guarantee survive, which is really important for the team chemistry as a whole. The EVs are also allow Politoed to outspeed Mega Lucario by 1. Now I didn't want to have max speed because a lot of people also scarf their Tyranitar, and they might want to underspeed scarf Politoed so they could lead Scarf Tyranitar against the Scarf Politoed and keep the sand up. and by dropping, a significant amount of speed, I guess it's not that significant, what is it, like 8, but I drop enough points to where if someone's trying to underspeed me by 1, I'm able to still underspeed that Tyranitar and keep the rain up. What Politoed specifically was used for, its main thing was actually there to outspeed and one-shot Garchomp with Ice Beam. Garchomp is the #1 most popular Pokemon in VGC 2014, pretty much across the board. So I knew I needed some kind of an answer to it, and this is why I started with Politoed. I wanted to start with something that could one-shot this Garchomp. Scald itself is great. It's got a 30% chance to burn, and Water was really good in this metagame because it hit a lot of things neutrally. You don't get a lot of grass types here, so Water acted very well as just kind of a pound strategy, which kind of leads into the next point. Politoed really comboed really well with Ludicolo as my fast mode of the team. I kind of have a lot of fast modes, but this is my main fast mode. You kind of want a fast mode to steamroll slower opponents, slower teams, or less experienced players. You don't want to have to, in a long tournament, you want to try to keep the mental strain as low as possible. And when I got a chance to just go rain and just cause havoc, it saved my mental state for later in the tournament because it's a long weekend of battling. It's really important to just have this fast mode so you can get out. Speed is so huge in VGC. If you can KO a Pokemon before they get to move, it's like they didn't even have that Pokemon. So that comboed really well as my fast mode. Politoed also one-shot a ton of things with Hydro Pump that Scald doesn't, such as Mega Lucario. So that's why outspeeding is really important. I can outspeed and one-shot it with Hydro Pump. One-shot Mienshao with it. I can one-shot Bisharp with it. I can one-shot Gengar if it's carrying a Life Orb instead of a Focus Sash. So there's a ton of stuff out there that Hydro Pump would get the one-shot on that Scald wouldn't, or it could combine with a Ludicolo Scald. A Scald and a Hydro Pump will KO something, such as in my top 8 match against Ray, my Hydro Pump Scald into a Zapdos, KO'd it. You turn 1 in both games 2 and 3. I just doubled into it, Hydro Pump Scald, and I got the KO. Also, very importantly, Politoed was here as my main weather changer. So the Weather War, it's important to have some kind of an answer to it. My answer is to change their weather. I noticed, look, what are the 2 big main weather setters, really the only 2 other weather setters in the format? Mega Charizard and Mega Tyranitar. Now, both of these take up the Mega slot on your opponent's team, and they're going to be used to try to switch in and out to try to keep their weather up. If I was able to use Politoed to keep up my weather, not only does it weaken fire moves and water super effects, both of these things, both Charizard and Tyranitar, but if I'm able to keep the rain up, I'm able to sack Politoed as more of just like a rain piece as opposed to trying to protect him as a Mega. So I still got to access a Mega, utilize Mega Kangaskhan, and kind of let Politoed work on the Weather War instead of having to try to save it and switch it in to try to keep my weather up. So I thought it was really important that my weather changer wasn't a Mega. I didn't have to rely on it Mega evolving and then it coming out and trying to keep it safe. I could sack Politoed very easily if I needed to. Next up, we have Ludicolo. He's got an Assault Vest, also Modest. I really only have 2 different natures on the whole team. It's Modest and Jolly. There's 4 Modest and 2 Jolly. He was put on second for good reason. He's a very trusty partner of Politoed's for since forever. EV's at 76 HP, 236 special attack, 196 speed. Scald, Giga Drain, Ice Beam, Fake Out because it has Assault Vest. Can't run Protect here. The EVs are there to outspeed +1 neutral 252 base speed 100, such as Salamence and Zapdos, even Staraptor in the rain. And outside of the rain, it outspeeds Rotom of all the appliances without decent investment. If they put in serious speed investment, yeah, they can outspeed me, but most people would just put in 4 or 8 or maybe 12 EVs, and I could still outspeed them with my Ludicolo, which it really helped if rain wasn't up because I didn't want to be pigeonholed into bringing Politoed if I want to bring Ludicolo. I wanted Ludicolo to work as its own piece. Now then, after the speed, I kind of just maxed out special attack for damage. Like I said, 236 gets a lot of those same KOs. Then I dropped the rest into HP just for survivability, especially because it's got that Assault Vest. It was used for that fast mode with Politoed. It covers a lot of things that Politoed doesn't really hit very hard in this format, such as Azumarill, Rotom Wash, and it helps with Amoonguss. I'm going to get to that in a second because it is a grass type. especially Rage Powder, Spore, Shenanigans. It's got that 30% chance to Scald Burn, which is really important. I can't tell you how many times I got a Scald on something and I got a burn, and I was like, oh, thank God. This one match, this guy Swords Dance with his Mawile scalded it the next turn because I was clearly faster, and I got the burn, and I was like, oh, well, yeah, that's really helpful, cool. And I was able to survive his attack and go on and win the game. Like I said, Ludicolo being grass, it avoids Spore from Amoonguss, so it gives me something that I can like leave out in the field without having to be like, oh no, he's gonna Spore me. But it also bypasses Rage Powder. So Amoonguss Azumarill was pretty popular for a while, and it would, Amoonguss would Rage Powder to kind of keep its partner safe, and Ludicolo could get past that, especially next to Azumarill, who takes super effective damage from grass, and it really helped to just be able to attack that slot, especially if I weakened them before Amoonguss came in and started trying to Rage Powder everything away from it. So it helped in that regard because I don't have any spread moves on this team. So redirection really, really could give me a hard time. I either had to KO that Pokemon or use something like Ludicolo to get around it. Ludicolo also gave me a special defensive wall. I don't have Protects, so I need to switch in. The only ways I can switch in is either, I wait till something gets KO'd, or I switch in something that can take the hit pretty well. You'll see I have Aegislash back there at the bottom for its switch potential. But Ludicolo, there was a lot of times I could switch it in to take a hit, and that was really helpful. Especially, I remember one occasion someone was going to possibly Draco Meteor my Hydreigon. It was another Hydreigon, which I knew was faster. It was Scarf. And I was like, oh, okay, I can switch in Ludicolo to that spot. I did have Aegislash in the back, but I said to myself, I can switch in Ludicolo because I'm going to take it relatively well. And I did switch it in, and my opponent thought I was going to switch out into Aegislash because Hydreigon and Aegislash are a perfect pair. They cover each other's weaknesses with resistances perfectly. Switched into Ludicolo and took the Dark Pulse really well, and I was like, oh, thank God I didn't switch in Aegislash. So it kind of made predictions a little bit easier and gave me a little bit more defense on this team, which is really offensive to begin with. It also carried Fake Out, which helps a lot in the turn one, especially against other opponents with Fake Out. I can Fake Out their Kangaskhan and not have to worry if they're going to Fake Out or Power Punch their teammate and stuff like that. And, just give time for Politoed to Scald, or even against something like a Charizard lead, I can Fake Out the partner and Rain Dance that turn and make sure I know I'm going to be safe that turn, because no matter what that Charizard's going to do, unless it's carrying Air Slash, I'm going to be in a good shape. So that's what Ludicolo was there for. It was really a big partner for Politoed, but I wanted to make it work by itself as well. Next up, we have Kangaskhan, holding Kangaskhanite, so Mega Kangaskhan. I use Scrappy just to hit Ghost with the Fake Out sometimes, or just not Mega Evolve and hit him with returns if I have to. And I gave it Jolly Nature, 4 HP, 252 attack, 252 speed. To me, Kangaskhan, I really needed the speed and the power. Speed's obviously more important to me because you saw the Jolly Nature there, and I'll explain that in a second. I gave it Fake Out, Sucker Punch, Return, Power Punch, pretty standard set there. It's really here just to do a lot of damage. The whole team was just do general damage. And Kangaskhan's normal type moves, as well as its fighting type Power Up Punch move, was able to cover a lot of the weaknesses my team would face. Return into I could do that into Gyarados, Hydreigon, Rotom W, any number of things. And Power Punch was really helpful against Tyranitar, who would come in and try to change the weather. The EVs are pretty plain, pretty vanilla, except for I really wanted to outspeed other Kangaskhan so I could lock them down with Sucker Punch. And this was really important in a number of my games, knowing that I was faster, because a lot of people would put in a little bit of bulk or they'd make their Kangaskhan adamant. I'm able to outspeed in return for good chunk of damage, 70%. They do it back to me, and then I know that I'm faster, or it can at least play the speed tie game, but usually I was faster, and just sit out on the field and either Sucker Punch their Kangaskhan if they try to attack to KO it, or threaten the Sucker Punch, and they're going to be forced to switch out the Kangaskhan if they don't want to lose it. So being faster really helped me win the Kangaskhan kind of one-on-one when they're both on the field. And as long as my partner could handle whatever else was on my opponent's side of the field, I was going to be all right. As you can see, a lot of my things are really fast. I mean, look at Talonflame. Yeah, Kangaskhan, you got Choice Scarf, Politoed. If Rain's up, Ludicolo is mad fast. And Hydreigon's got a pretty decent speed stat. So I was able to lock down the partner fairly well and leave Kangaskhan to deal with the other Kangaskhan. And I thought that was really helpful. So the speed to me was very, very important. What it was used for, like I said, Mega Kangaskhan. Mega Venusaur gave me a big problem on my team. Even though my back four handle it, they can all they all have a decent way to handle it. Mega Venusaur was always something that I needed to check, and if I wanted to bring Rain against a Mega Venusaur team, because a lot of Mega Venusaur teams, like allies, a lot of their other teammates are pretty weak to Rain, I needed to make sure that I could bring at least two things that could help handle Mega Venusaur while still helping the rest, against the rest of Mega Venusaur's friends. So Mega Kangaskhan was definitely one of those Pokemon. It also helped, like I said, against a number of different Pokemon that Rain doesn't really deal well with. Gyarados, Hydreigon, Rotom Wash, Amoonguss for sure. It also, Kangaskhan was one of my leads against Smeargle to avoid Dark Void because I can outspeed and one-shot it with Return. So long as I haven't been put to sleep already, I know with max speed Kangaskhan I could fake out opposing Kangaskhan next to Smeargle, Con Artist, a relatively popular lead with Smeargle. I could do that and use Talonflame's taunt to stop Smeargle. So the speed there was important to stop other fake outers, or at least to hit Smeargle before it did anything and KO it. Like I said, once again, Power Up Punch, super important on Tyranitar, because Tyranitar really loves to come in, change my weather, Rock Slide, Talonflame, Crunch into Aegislash, and kind of just wall Hydreigon to a degree, so long as Sand is up. So it's pretty important to have that fighting type move there. And also Fake Out support in general. So many times having two things with Fake Out, it was really helpful. I could switch it in mid-game, come out, Fake Out, and put myself in a good position again. So that kind of Fake Out allowed me to reset a lot of situations, and it gave me pretty good priority on the turn I came in. Next up, Talonflame holding a Choice Band. Gale Wings as the ability, Jolly Nature. Pay attention to these natures, guys. My two physical mons, both Jolly, and that speed's super, super important to both of them. Same spread as Kangaskhan, 4 HP, 252 attack, 252 speed. Carrying Brave Bird, Flare Blitz, U-Turn, which are all pretty standard on a choice banded Pokemon. I mean, a choice Talonflame specifically, because he doesn't get a lot of other moves there. And I chose Taunt as the last one, and I'll get to that in a second. The EVs, like I said, this Jolly Nature, really, really, really important. Talonflame ran through my team, at least in testing. That's why I put those EVs into Politoed, and I knew Politoed could survive every form of Brave Bird except for the Adamant one. Jolly outspeeds Adamant Talonflame, obviously. But it outspeeds Adamant Talonflame, and I have a 75% chance to one-shot the 4 HP version. So I figured, look, I could run the Adamant version, and every time another Talonflame comes out, I flip a coin. Hopefully I outspeed, do the damage. If not, oh god, I die. But if I do outspeed, if I'm Jolly and I'm guaranteed to outspeed, not only do I have a 75% chance to KO other Talonflame, but if, let's say, I do hit it and I don't KO it, let's say it's got a little bit of investment or I got a bad roll, when it Brave Birds me back, at least we both go down. So I used it as kind of a Talonflame check. It was my Talonflame check to other Talonflame. Now, switching in Talonflame, never a great idea, but if it's out there, it does crazy damage. It kind of really helped me reset situations. If my opponent gets a Dragon Dance on Gyarados, I'm able to come in and Brave Bird it for 70 HP, 70%, and if I had at least tapped it ahead of time, that would be enough to KO it. So that was really, really clutch, and it was mostly here. It also helps against, obviously, Mega Venusaur. So it's here to one-shot of the Talonflame, KO Mega Venusaur, stop Dark Void, because next to Kangaskhan, I'm able to fake out Kangaskhan's able to fake out Smeargle's partner, and I'm able to taunt it, and then switch out Talonflame after that. So that was kind of my anti-Smeargle lead. I could also U-turn to reset Rain, like let's say my opponent was using Charizard or whatever, and in comes Talonflame. When they switch in their weather, I can U-turn the start of that turn, get my Rain in, lower Tyranitar's special defense, scald it, for a lot of damage. So that U-turn was able to allow me to reset Rain. And also I needed a fire move for Ferrothorn, because Ferrothorn is a scary Pokemon. So gave me all of that. It was kind of like a toolbox Talonflame, even though it was very offensive. I used it for very specific purposes. Alright, next up we have Hydreigon. It's holding choice specs, modest nature, 84 HP, 12 defense, 236 special attack, 4 special defense, and 172 speed. The moveset wise, pretty standard, except for some people think Earth Power is not that standard. A lot of people would run Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, and Flamethrower, or Fire Blast. I chose Earth Power because I wanted to hit Steel types, because in the rain, I knew I was going to have Rain up, and Fire isn't that great against stuff in the rain because it's half power, obviously. Earth Power gave me a good way to hit Aegislash in the rain and Mawile in the rain, and actually really helped me against Ray in my top 8 match because it was able to one-shot his Aegislash and almost one-shot his Mawile. He actually increased the special defense of his Mawile, so being able to Earth Power it for a good like 90-something% of the Mawile was a lot. It allowed me to just tap it a little bit and then KO it. The EVs, it survives Mega Kangaskhan's return. That was really important to me. Mega Kangaskhan's also a big threat to rain because it can one-shot Ludicolo. It can, depending on the second one-shot, my Politoed can one-shot Talonflame. Like, I needed some way to deal with it, and I didn't want everything to just fall to it. So this way, Hydreigon can survive Mega Kangaskhan's return, and it actually has an 81.3% chance to one-shot 4 HP Mega Kangaskhan itself. So I could survive it and get a pretty good chance to one-shot it with Draco Meteor back. I survived Garchomp Dragon Claw, which I could then KO back with Draco Meteor. And I also outspeed Smeargle with the speed EVs, which was, also important in case I ever ran into any. I didn't run into any, but I thought it would be important. I also knew that one of the popular Hydreigon sets going around at the time was Dark Assassin's Hydreigon set, and that was 2 points in speed slower than this one, so I wanted to speed creep the speed creepers of that Hydreigon. So that's why I hit 140. Because I think Dark Assassins was 138. It was either 138 or 139, but I made sure mine went to 140 just to outspeed Smeargle and that Hydreigon itself. What it was used for, I could nuke things like crazy with Draco Meteor. It one-shots so many things. It one-shots a lot of Rotoms. I one-shot them. I one-shot Kangaskhan. I one-shot, from time to time, obviously. Sometimes these survive, but I could one-shot Gyarados. I could one-shot pretty much, like Dark Pulse could one-shot Aegislash sometimes. So that kind of damage was so crazy. Earth Power can one-shot Aegislash. Flamethrower outside of the rain can one-shot. Ferrothorn, big surprise. But I did need another fire move for Ferrothorn. I couldn't just rely on Talonflame here. I could hit Steel type super effectively in rain with Earth Power, like I said. Aegislash was actually a big threat to my team as well, and that's why Hydreigon was put on this team in the first place. It used to be a Salamence, but I was too weak to Aegislash, especially with rain going up and weakening Talonflame's way to deal with it. And also, Hydreigon had an electric resistance, which none of like the rest of my team wanted to take a Thunderbolt. So if Politoed was out there, and I saw Zapdos, I could switch out into Hydreigon, and then go and nuke it with a Draco Meteor. So that resistance was really important to my team. Finally, we have Aegislash holding leftovers. That's actually my favorite version of Aegislash. Modest Nature, once again, 236 HP, 252 speed, 252 special attack, and 20 speed. Now it's modest with 20 speed because I really like going first with my Aegislash. I really like going first and substituting, and if they attack, then they're in offense mode, and I can sub again while they King Shield, or I can just, if I think they're going to mind game that, I'm just going to hit them first with a Shadow Ball. Or if they've been hurt and they're like at 50%, I can just Shadow Ball them and take them out. So that speed to me was really important in the Aegislash matchup, and since I was weak to other Aegislash, I wanted a way to deal with it, and my own helped me. So I actually picked both Talonflame and Aegislash to help check that same Pokemon on other people's teams. I gave it Substitute because it beats a Kangaskhan and Mawile one-on-one with the sub and the leftovers heal. Flash Cannon, Shadow Ball, would have loved to have given it Sacred Sword, but it's Modest Nature, and I think the Aegislash I was using only had 17 attack IVs, so Flash Cannon ended up doing more damage than Sacred Sword did. And finally, King Shield. So that was the moveset. The EVs were mostly just there to do as much damage as possible, survive whatever it could, and also outspeed the other Aegislash with that 20 speed I put in and the Modest Nature. And then what it was used for, it also helped against, I guess, Mega Venusaur I didn't mention earlier, but Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Mawile, and Mega Venusaur helps against those. It's just got great defensive synergy. I could switch in for so many different moves, and it's really what helped glue the team together. Overall, I had it as a way to just switch in, and I wanted something that could at least not take massive damage from Kangaskhan's return. If I saw one incoming, I could switch in Aegislash and, go from there. So the typing was absolutely incredible for this team. The Dragon Resist, I also needed a way to not just get chunked by a Draco Meteor. This was one of my ways, besides the Assault Vest Ludicolo, but even then Ludicolo still takes pretty decent chunk of damage, so this was my go-to way. Helped against Gardevoir, who's got pretty great special defense. Aerodactyl, who I don't want to, get flinched from, and I don't want it KOing my Talonflame. Moongus, because I can sub first, and other Aegislash, as I said, because I'm fast. Quote-unquote fast. Raise outsped mine. Ray's Aegislash outsped mine like crazy, so mine's not the fastest out there, but it's pretty good speed. And it was also a safe non-physical lead against Intimidate. A lot of times you'll see something like, I don't know, Gyarados want to lead against Rain Team, and I needed something that I could send out there that wasn't just going to get immediately nerfed. I didn't want to lead Politoed against Gyarados. Ludicolo is kind of a meh maybe option, but both Intimidate would both hurt Kangaskhan and Talonflame, both already because they're jolly, so they're not even packing that much extra power, so that Intimidate really hurts them a lot. And I'd already probably want to lead Hydreigon to one-shot the Gyarados, so I wanted a partner for it, and Aegislash, being a special attacker, was a pretty good, safe, non-physical lead to go up and start up against something like a Gyarados. Now, building the team itself. The process took me about 2 months, and I went back and forth on a lot of things, and I dropped the team for a while, and I came back to it. But I started by looking at the VGC ranking of use. And I know this is June's, but this is kind of representative of what it looked like when I was building the team. What I noticed that Garchomp's usage was absolutely off the roof. 36% of battles, all battles, had Garchomp in it. This is on Showdown. These are Showdown rankings right now. And, you know, whatever people say about Showdown, I think it still does a pretty good job of showing what's going on in the metagame to a degree, to an extent. And that also depends on the tournament, but it's better than nothing for sure, especially once they took down the VGC ladder on BattleSpot. I knew Garchomp was crazy, so I wanted something that could one-shot Garchomp. I also wanted it to outspeed Garchomp, so Garchomp wouldn't threaten my partner. I wanted it just to outspeed and one-shot the #1 most used Pokemon in VGC 2014. So I went through a lot of things. I went through Greninja, which was pretty interesting. You know, Scarf Salamence, Scarf Gardevoir. Gardevoir doesn't even like get the KO all the time. Azumarill was too slow. I wanted it to be faster. And then I looked at Politoed. So I was like, why Politoed? Why not Salamence or Gardevoir? I know Azumarill was too slow, and Greninja didn't fight the weather war. It didn't come in with rain. So I like Politoed over Greninja for that reason. It was also a bit bulkier. And by a bit, I mean, yeah, a lot. So, but why over maybe Salamence, who has Intimidate, or Gardevoir, who, you know, has Spread, Dazzle, Gleam, and stuff like that, who can one-shot Hydreigon? Well, I noticed not only will Politoed with a Scarf one-shot Garchomp, which was my #1 thing, and it also has Rain, but in this metagame, 2014, Fire was becoming increasingly important. I mean, look at the 4th usage and the 7th usage. You see Talonflame, and you see Rotom Heat. Fire was becoming big to help deal with Mawile, help deal with Aegislash, help deal with Amoonguss, all which, you know, are pretty running rampant throughout VGC 14. Rain by itself not only weakens their fire moves, but with, you know, stab water move, I can one-shot a lot of these things into Rain because water super affects fire, newsflash. So I like that. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. What else does Politoed offer me? Well, I'm like, okay, I can take a move from Salamence and Ice Beam it, or if I do have Drizzle, I can run either Kingdra or Ludicolo next to it and threaten Salamence. That's awesome. Tyranitar's 9th. Look at that. 20% of teams have Tyranitar. Well, if I get Rain up, I'm able to Scald it super effectively, right? I'm able to hit it with Hydro Pump or Scald and deal with that as well. Let's go through the next 10 Pokemon on this list. You look at Charizard, which is a Mega, right? Politoed helps against it as a Mega, and Politoed's not even a Mega itself, so I get to kind of help check a Mega with a non-Mega, which saves my Mega for later. Mawile is not very specially strong, and brain-boosted Scalds are going to do massive damage to it. Hydreigon's #15, and I know that Politoed, along with a Rain partner such as Ludicolo or Kingdra, can easily either double into Hydreigon with a double Ice Beam for the KO, or if it's Kingdra, he can just Draco it first. There's Aerodactyl, who's super affected by Scald and will go down to, you know, a single Rain-boosted move. And also Gengar will fall to a single Hydro Pump from a Rain-boosted Politoed, so long as they're not carrying Focus Sash. So I was like, wow, there's a lot of top-tier threats that Politoed helps out with. Well, so we have Politoed, and Politoed's biggest thing is Drizzle, right? It puts up the rain, and how could I abuse that? Well, there's 2 Pokemon typically you see with Politoed. It's either Kingdra or Ludicolo. So I went back to the board of popular Pokemon to see what I wanted to pick. I'm here. I'm looking at Ludicolo. Now, what Ludicolo brings to this table that Kingdra does not, and I think it's pretty widely understood right now that Ludicolo is probably the stronger choice. as far as a Swift Swimmer in VGC 2014 because of its grass typing, and it's a pretty good special bulk. You look at Rotom Wash and Amoonguss, two things that were on the top 10 list, top 9, 1 through 9, that it's super effects. It not only gets around Spore and Rage Powder, but it can Ice Beam the Amoonguss. So long as they're not carrying Sludge Bomb, it's going to be pretty fine, especially a Salt Vest version. And also Rotom Wash can't really do much to it, and I can Giga Drain it for a lot of damage. Then if you go through 10 through 20, there's a Azumarill right there, and Ludicolo does a great job with that. This is not excluding all the other points that Politoed had, such as Rain Boosted Scalds against Mawile, Burns, Scalding Charizard, Ice Beaming into Hydreigon. I can even go ahead and Giga Drain Gyarados and try to do that kind of exchange, or hit Aerodactyl. So a lot of the same strengths against these top 20 Pokemon that are used in VGC 14 are shared with between Ludicolo and Politoed. So I was like, oh, Ludicolo, this sounds like a good place to start. He also always had that burn option from Scald that Kingdra doesn't get. I didn't want to deal with Muddy Water missing because oh god, it's terrible. So where we're at right now in the team building process, I liked Politoed and Ludicolo. I knew I wanted to give Politoed the Choice Scarf so it could outspeed and one-shot Garchomp, but I didn't know what I wanted for the other 4 of my team yet. And this is where the next video will continue at. I will go through and I will explain the rest. But right now, we're at the Politoed Ludicolo, Choice Scarf and Politoed. 4 more to go. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know, and I will put that second part out soon. And I've split it into 2 so I can really give you guys like I'm trying to do it in a very basic fashion, how I got to what I wanted to use, but I'm also doing it in a way that makes sense, and this is how it went through my head. So I thought that would be helpful, especially for future. Also, it'll probably be helpful for me just to talk it out. But I hope you guys like it. I hope you guys tune in for the next time. And yeah, thanks for watching. And don't forget to check out the article on Nugget Bridge. It'll be in the description below. It'll have my whole war story, and you can read about my battles and which games I won and which games I lost. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.